All right. If you want, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and get started?
Sure, that's no problem at all. So hello, everyone. My name is Tom Yoakum. I'm the Deputy District Director for the St. Louis District Office Small Business Administration. And we are here to talk about the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and the Economic Injury Disaster loans that are all related to this COVID-19 disaster pandemic. So with that, we can go to the next slide. So obviously, this is unprecedented for what we're going through. We're on the second round of funding that came out April 27th. First round was $349 billion, and that was gone in 14 days. They obligated another $310 billion just for the Paycheck Protection Program, and then there's additional funding just for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan advance, and that came out. I heard yesterday that we're probably about halfway gone through that. So the good news is, I think the loans are actually getting smaller, so there's more money to go around for more and more small businesses as they come about. For those of you that have applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the portal actually did open up yesterday. However, they opened it up just for, there's a couple things they opened it up for, and we don't know if it's going to be opened up for more later or not, but the agricultural businesses are now eligible, so those are the ones that can apply. If any of you applied very early on, and this is kind of an important piece, if you have an application that begins with a 2, you would be eligible to reapply also for the advance, so that you can marry up the two application numbers. So those are the only 2 people that can apply right now for the EIDL loan. But we'll talk more about the EIDL loan when we get to those slides. So next slide. So yeah, we'll talk about SBA funding, which is the Paycheck Protection Program loan, the EIDL loan, and debt relief. For those of you that have a current SBA loan, there's some debt relief things that are coming out. And then if anybody needs technical assistance, we'll talk about our resource partners and counseling information that we have also. And the 2 websites that are here, SBA.gov and Treasury.gov, I really want to emphasize that there is a whole lot of information that is flying around out there. If you don't get it from the SBA website or the Treasury website, double check your information. That's the only place that I would trust information. A lot of people are speculating. A lot of accounting companies and law firms and that are speculating, and they're giving their own interpretation of the guidance that's out there, and that's a bad idea. So just so you're aware, SBA.gov and Treasury.gov are the 2 places to go. So the EIDL loan is what we'll talk about first. EIDL loan is to cover small businesses, operating expenses. It's a long-term loan with a low interest rate, 3.75% for businesses, and the first payment is deferred 11 months. So you basically get you make your first payment after a year. The advance is what most people are interested in, and that's $1,000 per employee, up to a maximum of $10,000 after a successful application. They originally said that'd be out in 3 days. That has definitely not been the case. They've been so overwhelmed that it's taken a much longer period of time. Some people have been waiting up to 5-6 weeks for that, so just be aware. Paycheck Protection Program, it was for the purpose of paying your employees their payroll, that you have to use 75% or more of it for payroll for 8 weeks after the loan is closed. So, and it's a 2-year, it is considered a loan, but it's a 1% interest rate for 2 years. And if it's used appropriately, up to 100% of it can be forgiven. And we'll talk more about that. Next slide. So what businesses are eligible to apply? Small business, agriculture cooperatives, aquaculture businesses, nonprofit organizations, businesses up to 500 employees. Some can go over 500 employees if they meet the right size standards. And it includes businesses directly affected by the disaster, businesses offering services directly related to the businesses in the declaration, and other businesses. And I did check, originally guidance was not out on seasonal businesses. You were always eligible to apply, but they were doing a rolling 12-month average, which obviously did not really set too well with seasonal companies like some of your retailers here. So that guidance has been changed, and instead of a rolling 12-month average, you're able to use a 4-month window of when you normally have your peak business. So next slide. Ineligible entities, agricultural businesses, prior to the changes made on April 24th, and the primary activity of the business has to be defined by the Small Business Act, and that you guys don't want to get into the weeds on this, but that guidance is out there if you want to go to the SBA website. Charitable organizations, gambling companies, casinos, racetracks, and anybody that's defaulted on a federal loan. So that would not be eligible either. Next slide.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to know, do you want to answer a couple questions quick, or do you want to hold off till the end?
We can, why don't we hold off till the end, because we might be answering them along the way.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot.
Sure. So next slide.
Sorry.
Let's see. So how much can a business borrow? On the EIDL loan, loans may qualify for up to $2 million. And like I said, it's a 3.75% for small business, 2.75 for nonprofits, and the first 11 months are deferred. Loans can be used to make payments on fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. You can pay off short-term and interim loans, but you can't pay off, you can't refinance. And next slide. Ineligible, like I said, you can't refinance long-term debt, pay dividends, bonuses, make disbursement, repay stockholder loans, or you can't expand your business or buy fixed assets for this kind of thing. Can't repay direct federal debt or any disaster loans that you might have had in the past. And same with IRS, past due obligations are not eligible to be repaid. Next slide. So collateral requirements. So you don't need any collateral up to $25,000. No personal guarantees on loans up to $200,000, and above $200,000, you do need some collateral, and above $500,000 for real estate. And the SBA will not decline a loan for a lack of collateral. So you just got to pledge what's available. So this is where you go to apply. And like I said, the portal is open, but only for agricultural business and for businesses that have already applied and got a loan number that starts with a 2. And that's the https://covid19relief.sba.gov/#/ If that's a lot, you can actually just go to the sba.gov website and click on the banner that says COVID-19 relief and go to funding programs, and you'll wind up getting to the same link. So just so you're aware of that. you can, well, we'll go to the next slide. And when we get to PPP, we'll talk about a combination of these things. So the advance, when you apply for the loan, you're applying for an advance and a loan. So any businesses who are eligible can apply, and you go to that website, and the applicant indicates they would like to be considered, and you provide the bank routing number. And like I said, you get $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. And after the successful application, I don't have a timeline on when you're going to get it. It could be 4 to 6 weeks, but you will get an advance. They will not send you any communication. You're just in a waiting pattern until your bank has a deposit in it at $1,000 per employee. You do not have to take the loan. You can take all or part of it. So all, part of it, or none of it, and the advance is automatically forgiven. So if you applied for it, and I should say that for those of you that did apply, if your number starts with a 3, you are in the system. It is moving forward. It's just taking a long time to process. So, and down future slides, we'll get to a phone number that you can call if you have questions on that. So what information do you need? Tax ID, opening date of business, opening date of current ownership, gross sales, cost of goods sold, and then amount of rent lost as a result of the disaster. And social security numbers, date and place of birth, and this is a good hint, actually. There's a box at the top of the agent owner page that asks if you're owned by an entity. And if it's not checked, you can't proceed past that section. And then obviously, if you want the advance, you have to check the box on the last pages, and they'll ask you for your bank account and routing number. Next slide. Once completed, you're given the opportunity to edit or correct the application, and it's very important that you do that carefully. Make sure your email is correct and your phone number, because that's how they'll get in contact with you. I've had a lot of people that have made an error on it, and then you wind up having to call this 1-800 number, which is right down here on the slide, to try and make contact with them to make changes to your application. And it's a laborious process. I've heard people having to wait hours to get through to that number. Print the page and make sure you have your application number, because that's how you'll track it down the road. But originally they had a way to check the status of your application. They had to take that out after the first week because the system crashed due to the amount of traffic on it. So that's when they streamlined this application and reformatted it, simplified it, and took those options out to kind of decrease the amount of traffic on the web page. So yeah, you're fine. There's just kind of a brief look at the application. We can just go to the next slide. It's basic questions that you can check out. If you have any questions, give us a call. We can help you with that. Main thing is where to send the funds to, because like I say, they're just gonna deposit the money in your account, and you're gonna have a magical deposit in your account and not know where it's from, but that'll be, once you applied, that's what you'll be getting. Paycheck Protection Program. So this is for this is for people to maintain payroll. So bring your employees back to work. And employers who maintain their payroll may have their loans forgiven based on the criteria that we'll be talking about. This is a good comment actually at the bottom. It's important to remember that the intent is to get people back to work and on payroll as quickly as possible. Along with that is the forgiveness part. So there's a whole lot of guidance that we don't have yet on this forgiveness piece, and we'll have to work through that. So next slide. Same deal. What kind of businesses can apply? Small businesses with less than 500 employees, Businesses with greater than 500 have to meet the right size standards. 501c3s, nonprofits, veteran organizations, tribal business concerns, etc. Churches, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed. Businesses that receive revenue from legal gaming are eligible if the business's legal gaming revenue did not exceed $1 million in 2019. And that's an interesting distinction, because on the previous ones for EIDL, gaming companies are not eligible. So under PPP, they are if they meet that criteria. And then affiliate rules gets into how your businesses is set up with your NAICS code, the National Industry Classification Code, is how they distinguish what the affiliation rules are. So that's how, like, restaurants and things of that nature can apply for each individual restaurant, as opposed to the company as a whole. And same with franchises, they're kind of the same way. Next slide. What could make me ineligible? Illegal activities. You're a household employer, an owner of 20% or more of the equity of the applicant is incarcerated or on probation or parole. So, criminal activity. And you or any business owned or controlled by you or any of your owners have ever obtained or a direct or guaranteed loan from SBA or any other that's delinquent or defaulted. Next slide. Annual payroll costs. So this is where you get into actually what are you going to get. It's your annual payroll cost divided by 12 times 2.5. So you're getting 2.5 months. So the 8 weeks is what everybody's talking about. You have to bring your people back for 8 weeks. And then, so it's 2.5 times 2 months. So 2.5 times 1 month's payroll. 1% interest rate up to a maximum of $10 million, and your first payment is deferred for 6 months. Next slide. So, like I said, important information is found on the SBA websites and Treasury websites. That's where you find out how to calculate your loan. And frequently asked questions is a real big one. That kind of gets into how you count your employees. So it's interesting because you count the employees part-time or full-time as far as number of employees, but you go by full-time equivalents when you're calculating your payroll. So just so you're aware of that. In other words, you could, according to that guidance, you could probably have a part-time employee work more hours if one part-time employee didn't come back. Just, read the guidance on that if you have questions on that. It's pretty clear. Next slide. Just more on the Paycheck Protection Program. This is all some of the frequently asked questions. Again, I won't read all that. You guys can read that. So next slide. And how to calculate your loan. So this is actually a good piece. A lot of you are probably self-employed or sole proprietors, or independent contractors possibly. You use your Schedule C line 31 is what you go by. So it actually really simplified that. You are eligible and you go by your Schedule C line 31. And like I say, for seasonal employees, there's actually on the Treasury website, there's specific guidance on seasonal employees. Now look at the interim rule on the Treasury website for the interim rule on seasonal employees, and it'll tell you exactly how to calculate your total payroll. Next slide. How is forgiveness determined? Is employers need to document that they retained or rehired their employees and maintain salary levels over the 8-week period beginning on the date of the loan. So you're probably going to have questions that I most likely won't be able to answer on some of this, because with seasonal work, you probably haven't actually started some of your business line yet. So what I will tell you is we are all waiting on specific guidance on how some of this is going to be forgiven. There's all kinds of questions out there on that. And a lot of people are very comfortable spending money on this, but until they know exactly how it's going to be forgiven. But that, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that right now. So what we do know is payroll costs include salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips or equivalent, payments for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payment for the provision of employee benefits, consisting of group health care coverage, payment of state and state and local taxes assessed, and independent contractor for an independent or sole proprietor, wage, commissions, income, or net earnings. Next slide. Cannot include any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside the United States. Compensation of an individual employee in excess of $100,000. You got to prorate it down. And federal employment taxes imposed or withheld between February 15th and June 30th of this year. So qualified family sick leave, family wages for which credit is allowed for families' first Coronavirus Response Act cannot be included. And then compensation in excess of $100,000 on an annualized basis cannot be. So if someone makes $150,000 a year, you just got to count it as $100,000. Additional use of funds for rent, for your lease payments for your business, utility payments, and interest on mortgage payments as it pertains to your business. Forgiveness is based on the success of the employer in retaining its employees and maintaining compensation levels within the 25%. So basically you have to use 75% of your loan has to go towards payroll. And then the other 25% can go to the items that we just listed above: rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. After loan closing, the employer's costs for the next 8 weeks are considered, and any amount not forgiven would be termed out for the 2-year period at 1%. If an employer is not able to meet the expectations of the program with adequate documentation, loan forgiveness will be discounted accordingly. And what does that mean? And that's what we don't know right now. That's what we're waiting on guidance from. One thing I'll mention too is, for all the people that are nervous about this, because we've had all kinds of calls on that, keep in mind that this entire program is to bail out the small businesses in America. The last thing they're intending to do is to turn around and, give them a kick because you just took this big loan to pay your people. The intent is not to have you pay that back. The intent is to bail you out. So as long as you're honest and can kind of show them what you're trying to do within the guidance provided, it's going to work out. We just got to wait and find out specific guidance on what you need to show. So keep all your records. Forgiveness, yeah, there you go, next slide. How do you apply? Through a bank. So we've had an influx of lenders agreeing to participate in this, and I'll give you a website that you can go to actually find local lending institutions to help you if your bank is not already participating. Some banks, honestly, are so overwhelmed they can't take anymore. So it's possible that you might have to go look for another lending institution to do that. You need to gather your payroll information, like I said, to document what your employees are, as well as your additional costs related to payroll. Complete the borrower application form. It's actually an SBA form 2483. You can find it on the SBA.gov website, or a lot of the banks are having you apply on their website, so you can get the application right there. Certify the form to its accuracy, have the information provided to the lender, and certify that you understand and agree to the requirements of the program. and then provide any additional information as the lender required. So this is probably going to be the easiest loan you've ever applied for to get. Just make sure you're honest, because someone will be watching at some point in time and kind of just doing some spot checking on things. What does a lender need to do? Collect the borrower's application and the appropriate payroll records, conduct a good faith review of the payroll records, complete any required due diligence regarding the applicant and the lender application form, and submit it into the SBA E-Trans system. Once the approval is made, and this is kind of a catch, once the approval is made and you have a loan number, your loan, the bank is required to disperse funds within 10 days. So you need to make sure that your bank received the approval after they submitted the application. Just because you got it to the bank doesn't mean that it was submitted in the system. And that's kind of a key point. So just be aware of that. Next slide. What kind of documentation do you need to gather regarding payroll? We've kind of already talked about that. Submit documentation that supports employee payroll levels used to support your application. A breakdown of all eligible payroll costs should be submitted to determine the gross amount of the loan, which would be 2.5 months worth of payroll, 1 month's payroll. 1099 miscellaneous Schedule C's and Schedule K's are all different tax documents that are easy to work with to show your payroll and income. Borrower is responsible for documenting the use of proceeds over the 8-week period following disbursement, and that's what we're waiting on clarification on more specifics on that. You're going to have to work with your lender. So 7 weeks at the end of the 7th week, at the end of the 7th week, you can go back to your lender, go back to your bank and talk to them about what they need you to give them to get the loan forgiven. Lenders review the information and make a decision within a reasonable time. Nobody knows what a reasonable time is yet. More guidance we're waiting on. Next slide. This is the application form, the 2483. So if you haven't, take a look at it. It's pretty straightforward. A lot of people's accountants are actually helping them fill these out. Kind of goes back to the statement I said before that the accountants are giving a lot of opinion on their version of what the expectations are. So be careful of that, but they do have all your financial information to fill this out really easy. Next slide. Here's the next page of that, and next slide. So where do I apply? You go to sba.gov for the EIDL application. You go to your lender for a PPP loan, Paycheck Protection Program. You can have both the EIDL and a PPP loan at the same time, as long as you don't use them for the same thing. So for those of you that applied for an EIDL loan, if you're using the EIDL loan just for payroll, you absolutely want to roll that in and refinance it with a PPP loan so that it can be forgiven. Because the only part of the EIDL loan that will be forgiven is the advance. Everything else you got to pay back. The PPP loan, up to 100% of that can be forgiven, or you don't have to pay it back. How do you get the advance? Like we discussed, it's you check that box on the application at the end of what you submit. And like I said earlier, if you have a number that starts with a 3, you absolutely are in the system moving forward, and you don't need to do anything except wait. If you are curious where you're at, if you're concerned, there's the disaster number that you can call. It's 1-800-659-2955. And then if you've applied for a PPP loan with a lender and haven't heard anything, the only way to do that is to check with the lender that you have worked with. They're the only ones that can check on your status. Some people have actually said, my bank's not doing what I need them to do. You can choose, you can withdraw your application and go to a different lender. What I would recommend is you send an email to the lender that you're withdrawing from, because it's possible that you might get lost in translation there and you might wind up submitting an application for 2 instead of 1. That will cover you on down the road. If someone looks and says, well, you applied for 2 loans, you can show them that you withdrew from one bank. Next slide. Payroll costs include for PPP. What do they include for PPP forgiveness? Consist of compensation to employees in the form of salary, wages, commissions, similar compensation, cash tips or equivalents. Again, you're doing a reasonable good faith employer estimate of what your tips are, payment for vacation, healthcare, insurance premiums, retirement, state and local taxes, and then no federal taxes may be included. Next slide. Debt relief. So anyone that currently has an SBA loan, and those are 7A, 504 microloans, those loans are going to be deferred. SBA is going to pay them, actually, I shouldn't say it's not deferred. They're going to pay them for a 6-month period. So they'll automatically pay the principal, interest, and fees for new 7A and 504 and microloans issued prior to September 27th of 2020. For current SBA service disaster loans, if your disaster loan was in regular servicing status as of March 1, the SBA will provide automatic deferments through December 31st. So that's a pretty good deal. They're making your loan payments for you and deferring the others. Next slide. So if you have technical questions or need help filling out any of these applications, these are the folks that can help you. And I might add that these same groups, there are business counselors and mentors. So not just now, anytime down the road, if you have business questions or need assistance on, hey, I'm struggling with, do I want to buy this building, rent this building? Do I want to start a business? Do I want to market? How do I market my business? All these people are specialists in how to run, operate, market, start, etc. businesses. So they can help you with all that. They're on our website, so the Small Business Development Centers. And I don't know if, Matt, do we have people that are from other than St. Louis? Possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. All over Missouri, and probably some of these attendees might be outside of Missouri as well.
Okay, great. Well, so if you go to the SBA.gov website and go to local assistance, like it says down there, we have district offices. We got 68 district offices all over the country. Each district office has small business development centers, women's business centers, SCORE, and veterans business outreach centers. All those groups have business counselors and mentors that can help you with any business related question you have. And I can't encourage you enough to reach out to them and talk to them. Next slide. And that's it. So we can certainly take questions now.
All right, Tom, we've got quite a few lined up here, so I'm just going to read through the list if that works for you.
Certainly.
First one, could you, I think you mentioned it a couple times, but again, could you repeat who can apply for the EIDL right now?
So only agricultural businesses and businesses that applied early on and have an application number that starts with a 2. So apparently when the very first week people got a number that started with a 2. That did not give them the streamlined application, nor did that give them the opportunity to request an advance. So those people can reapply. And the answer to the follow-on question to that is, well, if I reapply, what will that do to my application that I had or my place in line? The answer is they match the 2 up and you don't lose your place in line.
Great.
And just so everybody's aware, they're working as fast as they can. I know some people say, oh, well, I got my money, other people don't. Someone applied before me and they got someone that applied after me got theirs before I got mine. If there's any issues with the application, that might have delayed until they can get an answer to that question, which is why someone might have gone ahead of you.
Oh, great. The next question we've got is, can you give us some more specifics about the 4-month window, how that works?
So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go and see what I can find here on, let's go to a different question and I'm gonna look for the guidance on that and see what we can find.
Okay. Next question I've got is an inventory loan due July 2020 from a short-term contract for fireworks orders eligible for the EIDL.
So you basically applied for, you ordered your stuff, your all your supplies, and it's due in July, and can you use the EIDL loan to pay for it?
I think that's what they're saying. They have a private loan, not with the SBA, that's due in July, and they want to know if they can use the EIDL to pay that for their product.
I want to say that makes sense for that, but why don't we write that question down and we'll get a specific clarification on that. So let me write that down here.
Sure.
And Matt, if it's okay, I'll email you the answers to this and you can kind of roll it out to your group. That way everybody gets the information.
Absolutely. I'd be glad to do that. We'll be sending the slideshow and a link to the video as well. So I'll include that in the email too. The next question I have is, how do we know if a EIDL loan is available or what amounts are still available?
So that's a tough one. We don't. See, here's what is kind of going on here that makes it kind of funny. They had such a massive influx of applications that they're not sure how much money they have. Odds are most people, we're kind of expecting this to open up again at some point. We just don't know when and with how much, because the EIDL loans are anywhere, they can go up to $2 million if you want the loan. The maximum advance is $10,000. Well, when people are applying, they don't know, they've accepted the application, but they don't know if they're going to get 1,000 or 10,000, and they don't know if they're going to get, a $20,000 loan or a $2 million loan. They have to look at all that and kind of weed through it, and then they'll know kind of where they're sitting, and they can decide if they have money to open it back up or not.
Okay, great. Next question I have, for some of these businesses, they are not allowed to be open for 8 weeks. For example, one of our viewers in Texas, they're only open 11 days as per state law. Can you give us any more insight as to how that works for them?
We're going to have to wait on more guidance on that. And actually, that is probably going to be something in here with this seasonal guidance. So without getting in and reading this whole thing here, there is, if you go to sba.gov, or I'm sorry, Treasury, I'm going to tell you exactly where this is, and you can look at it yourself. I found the additional criteria for seasonal employers, which is what you're all talking about. And it was posted on 4/27. So if you go to the treasury.gov website and you click on their coronavirus COVID-19 relief to learn more about Paycheck protection loans, it's going to take you to the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program. And then if you scroll down, it's going to give you frequently asked questions. It's going to give you a program overview for borrowers and for lenders, and then program rules. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th rule down specifically talks to seasonal employers. That's where you're going to get information on how to calculate, how your guidance goes in calculation for your seasonal work.
Okay, great. Next question. How does the PPP, you mentioned a lot of things it covered. Does it cover workers' compensation insurance payments?
The guidance does not suggest that. Only the things that we talked about in the guidance is what we would recommend. If it's not in there specifically, I wouldn't use that. I'll say it doesn't mean that it won't be, but if you want to cover yourself and make sure you're safe, don't count it unless it specifically says. Another good example of that is a lot of people have asked, what about for utilities? Does my internet count as a utility? Does my cell phone count as a utility? It doesn't specifically say that. So I can't say if it does or it doesn't. I would not do it if it was me because it doesn't specifically say that.
Great. Next question. I think this was when you were sort of alluding to seasonal, how the different type of corporation, their sole proprietor, the different types they might be. Someone asked about an S Corp 1120S.
So I actually just had S Corps are eligible. I had somebody ask that question yesterday and I got a clarification on that. It's a little, you might have to work with your bank on how to classify your income in that and your profit, but they are eligible.
Great. Will forgiven PPP loans be taxed later as business income by IRS or Missouri Department of Revenue?
We're looking for guidance on all that too, on how that comes out. I haven't seen that yet. And I apologize for the lack of information on some of this stuff. The truth is we're waiting for guidance ourselves, just like you are on a lot of this stuff. And the best places to go for that guidance is where I just told you, on the Treasury website and the SBA website. There's new questions coming out with answers every day. We started out with just a few questions on April 3rd, and we're up to like 42 to 45 questions now that have been answered.
Okay. Does it matter which SBA office we contact in Missouri to process EIDL? For example, these people that have, tents in multiple locations, does it matter which office they contact?
Not at all. I mean, so actually for an EIDL piece, you're going to go online and apply at sba.gov. So you're good there. Okay. But no, it doesn't matter. I mean, St. Louis district office covers the eastern half of Missouri. Kansas City district office covers the western half. But we're going to help you out no matter what.
Okay, great. Another question: will these loans affect credit score or personal debt to income ratio?
So they are not supposed to impact your credit. However, the EIDL loan, the Office of Disaster Assistance, does do a credit pull on your current credit before they issue the loan. The credit bureaus are not supposed to be dinging your credit for that, but I have heard that Experian is doing that. So the best advice we have for that is talk. Unfortunately, you need to talk to Experian because we cannot control what they do. The other ones we're told are not doing anything with credit, but Experian is.
Okay, that's good to know. If most of the work done at our stand is from family and not reported as paid due specific person and payroll, are we pretty much ineligible for that loan?
Well, I mean, you got to be able to show your payroll documentation. So if you can't, that's going to be tough.
Right. So if you're paying in cash, that might be tough unless you've got records.
That is correct.
If you've got more questions, please go ahead and type them now. Or if I didn't quite answer, ask the question properly, please feel free. I've got 2 more left here. And I'm going to try and read these off to the best of my ability. Do you have guidance on Missouri Division of Employment Services unemployment claims of part-time workers who were laid off or furloughed at their other job, but who work at seasonal at our fireworks business? Can they return to our company to work part-time and not lose their unemployment benefits eligible from their other job layoff? Many employees don't want to come work for our seasonal companies because they are getting $600 a week plus state unemployment funds.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's kind of a sticky wicket. You can't collect unemployment and have a job at the same time. And guidance just came out yesterday, actually, on some of this, and this doesn't exactly answer your question, but I think it's in the ballpark and will help you down the road. So for employers that are trying to get their people to come back to work, we've heard all kinds of people say, well, just like you said, they don't want to come back to work because they're doing better on unemployment. That's fine. But if they're offered their job back and they decline it because they would rather stay on unemployment, they are no longer eligible for unemployment because they declined the job. So for those people who are the employer, they're supposed to document that, email, letter, however you want to do it. Don't do it by phone. Do it in writing to verify that you did in fact offer people their job back and that they declined it. That's going to give you the ability to have more forgiven on your payroll, even if you don't have that employee. And that is also going to cue in unemployment that the person should not be collecting unemployment. Now, whether or not that goes anywhere, that's not up to me. That's not up to SBA. But the person is collecting unemployment fraudulently at that point because they've been offered a job. So beware if you are declining a job and collecting unemployment.
Still got a couple more questions here. Are EIDL loans up to $2 million being issued in order of application number, or in what order? I have an application number with 3 from April 1st and have not heard anything on the loan, although I got an advance of $2,000 for 2 employees needing a loan up to $2 million. So how do we get the loan?
So good question. An SBA loan officer, so an EIDL loan, your loan is with the Small Business Administration. The PPP loan is a loan from your bank. So you got the advance. That's great to hear. That means that you're getting really close. At some point, usually shortly thereafter, shortly is a relative term, let's say a week and a half after your advance, hopefully sooner, you should be getting contacted via email, most likely, from an SBA loan officer who will ask you if you still want the loan. And if you do, that's perfectly fine. Then they will ask you most likely for some additional information, and they will work with you and tell you what kind of loan amount they will offer you. You don't tell that, you can ask them, but they're going to look at your documentation. Originally, they would ask for a schedule of liabilities and a personal financial statement, and then they would use that information to determine how much of a loan to offer you. So hopefully soon, if you've already got your advance.
Okay. And I think this is a follow-up. It might have been the same question. What is the step-by-step process for the EIDL loan going from an application number 3 from April to loan up to $2 million to pay bills due now?
Yeah, the best we can do is tell you that I'm sorry it's taken so long, because originally, believe it or not, the guidance was, they told us within 1 to 3 weeks that they would have all these loans processed as they came in. Nobody ever expected the massive influx of applications on this. So I know you got bills now, and they're working as fast as they can to get those. They really are. They're getting more and more out every day. It's just a waiting game. And if you want, you can try. You can try and call that 1-800 number, and they might be able to give you they have the ability to look in the system. Sometimes they can see information, sometimes they can't. Believe it or not, they told us that there's so many applications coming in that there was no reason to look in the system, because you got a number, but there was so many applications coming in that you couldn't even get information on the number that you got. They had to have the system catch up. So that's kind of what's going on there. So bear with them, and try and do the best you can for the short time, and hopefully they'll be getting to you real soon. I've heard anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks from when they apply.
Okay, great. Another question, I think again might be the PPP. My husband and I work at the stand. They report it as business income and not as payroll for ourselves. Can they still do anything to qualify?
Yeah, I think it sounds right. Let's clarify that. Business income, so they must file. Are they filing a Schedule C? That sounds like they probably would if they're filing on business income. Yeah, you could. I mean, you're still eligible.
Okay. Yeah, they didn't specify if they're Schedule C, but that's good to know. So they're not completely ineligible for themselves if they've been taking it as a business.
I mean, a lot of people, that's what, you're self-employed, so you don't collect income. You just need or a payroll. You don't pay yourself. A lot of businesses are like that, but they are eligible. They just need to section it off that particular way when they're filing their application, and the bank can help them do that too.
Okay, and if they're Schedule A, does that make a difference?
Schedule A? I haven't heard of Schedule A. Well, Schedule A is just a long form.
Okay.
Schedule C is actually what most self-employed or independent contractors, sole proprietors are filing. It's a different schedule on your taxes for that form.
Okay, great. Well, Tom, I think I really appreciate your time today, coming here and talking to us all, answering our question, walking us through this and answering our questions. So thank you very much, Tom. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, my pleasure. And you have my contact information. So by all means, they can reach out to us or any district office, email me or call me at 314-539-6615. And we're happy to get you answers or help you out any way we can.
Great. Thanks again, Tom. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking us. And I'll get back to you on that inventory purchase due in July.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again. We'll follow up with everyone very soon.
All righty. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.